Well, as indicated, um, the man of the moment for the next hour is standing by, and no doubt our good friend over in um, St. Kitts and Nevis. Let's welcome um, Vernon Springer, the great Vernon Springer, who is joining us live from somewhere in St. Kitts and Nevis. Well, he will tell us exactly where he is. I know, the last time we spoke, he was in Antigua. Good afternoon to you, Vernon.
Good afternoon to you, Senator Michael Bascom. How are you doing?
I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. Vernon, uh, as you know, Vernon has been on our program a couple of times, giving us, his take on, well, more so on cricket, because when he came on, it was during the series. But this time we'll be talking not just cricket, but we'll be talking about OECS sports. We'll be talking about regional sports administration, all as it relates to sports in the OECS. And I assume that Vernon will want to pick up from where Colin has left off, I should say, regarding sports in the OECS. So first off, how are things going with you, Vernon?
Well, you give God thanks, and it is a wonderful time to be alive, as you would say, and being in Antigua and Barbuda. I just had a chance this morning to walk around where I live, so that's a real privilege. Some folks don't have that luxury and that opportunity to be able to walk around, so you give God thanks, and at the same time, went into town and saw some folks getting vaccinated. So that was pretty much impressive. I've got my job already, so I'm just waiting to get my second job to make sure that, hopefully I can maybe tour around the world, because that's the way we're going right now.
Okay, that's good to hear. That's good to hear. Yes, so we have quite a lot to get off with for this hour regarding sports in the OECS in particular. And it's a nice segue, because when Colin left us, that's Colin James, was actually speaking about the hope of the OECS Sports Desk. And that's something I know that's dear to you regarding sports in the OECS, and hopefully the re-establishing of the OECS Sports Desk. What's your take on that?
Well, first of all, let me take some time out to salute the pioneers who continue to work hard behind the scenes in sports in the OECS. And I really want to, through your program this afternoon, to really single out my friend, Trevor Shillingford, the Director of Sports in Dominica, in the Commonwealth of Dominica, who I feel has been leading. And when you look around and you can see, he's making a statement. Now, despite this COVID-19 pandemic, and all of our technocrats who are advising our sports ministers around the Caribbean and around the OECS that, we shouldn't be playing sports, Dominica has gone out on a limb and has made a huge impact and a benefit to the young people in Dominica. And so you could see through the Ministry of Sports Division in Dominica that activities are happening community-wise. And I really want to take some time out to salute Trevor Shillingford, because I think that speaks volumes in terms of his own development. Now, Trevor is somebody that I would have met like a long time ago, Michael. I think we first started at the under 15 level, Cricket West Indies under 15 level. That's when I first got connected with Trevor Shillingford, and was very instrumental at the time when I was working in the government of St. Kitts and Nevis Ministry of Sports Department for the 13 and under program. And so we had an establishment of youth sports between Dominica, Antigua and Barbuda, who at that point in time, first we started with Pat White, then we went on to Mervyn Richards. Just to let you know, Michael, that Lloyd Lazar, who was my director of sports at the time I went on to become PS, he passed away last year. So you would understand in terms of what's happening. Then we had Erskine King in Barbados. And then you had Cardigan Connor in Anguilla. And then you had Fitzroy Buffon and those guys in Montserrat. And so you had a cadre of sports leaders who understand youth sports development. Now, what you have today is that the technocrats who are directors of sports in these respective ministries are only concerned about their sport, whether we like it or not. If they're into cricket, that's what they're concerned about. If they're into track and field, they're into basketball, that is all they're concerned about. Not the overall development of youth sports. So, because there's nobody nudging the directors of sports, and they're coming together with a comprehensive program, That is why I feel, Michael, that the OECS Sports Desk has just gone off the boil. Because while the OECS Sports ministers maybe meet, there's really been no articulation of, let's say, an idea from Colin James to be able to push on the table and say, hey, what are we doing about OECS Sports? Simply because, and I keep saying it all the time and a lot of folks don't like to hear it, the administrators in our Ministry of Education and in our respective countries around feel that sports are for dummies. And so when you go to them with an idea about sports, first thing they're asking you, Michael, what sports you're talking about? But they don't understand the value of what sports means to a country. So maybe you need to be able to give them a crash course and a lesson on Karani James winning an Olympic medal. I can give them an analysis of Kim Collins being a Commonwealth champion to a world champion, to El Comida Willett, who was the first player from the Leeward Islands to open the door for Test cricket. So you have now the folks of Sir Vivian Richards, Andy Roberts, and company. I could give them an analysis on that. I could also tell them that the small little country of St. Kitts and Nevis combined has been able to host CPL, starting from way back from 2018, 2019, being able to get its own team, the St. Kitts Nevis Patriots, and will now host the CPL 2021. So you could begin to tell them the benefits of those situations. But until such time, Michael, when we have a fight on our hand to be able to convince our educators and the people who sit around the importance of sports, we always are going to be behind the 8 ball. So you know what happens during the pandemic, Michael? The first budget that is going to get cut is the Ministry of Sports budget. Not improving up. Notice what I said. The first budget, when they go into the analysis, first budget that is going to get cut is the Ministry of Sports budget. And somebody's going to tell you, boy, we got to take the money from there to be able to put it into health. Well, okay, Michael. Obesity is on the rise in the Caribbean. Notice what I said. I just dealt with one disease. Obesity is on the rise in the Caribbean. Have we come up with a plan, Michael? We are saying no school sports in some countries, some territories around the OECS and around the Caribbean. That we don't think the children should be going to play any sports because of the pandemic, X, Y, Z. But we don't have any plan in place, Michael, because those children have been sitting down for a year. But we don't have anything in place between here to get them active. So if we don't have no sports for a year and we're going into another year, Michael, what do you think is going to happen with obesity?
So are you saying, Vernon, that sports among regional leaders, regional governments, to you is all about talk and no action, lip service?
Well, you can always say, Michael, that the governments of the OECS or the Caribbean has invested heavily in infrastructure in sports. And I think wherever you go around the Caribbean, almost every sport in every community has, whether a basketball, a netball court, a tennis court, you name that. That's brilliant, Michael. One thing I can say to you, the governments have done an excellent job in that area. But where are the benefits now, the financial benefits now, to be able to make sure now that we use those sports facilities wisely to be able to attract, as we would say, colleges from the United States, from the United Kingdom? How are we intertwining to be able to make sure that the clubs in our OECS region get an opportunity to compete against each other? Because we missed the OECS football competition, which used to take place in the Leeward Islands, and then we used to have an overall OECS champs of champs between the Leewards and the Windwards. We don't have that competition anymore. So what is actually happening is that Michael Bascom plays for Grenada and he's waiting for a World Cup qualifier. In the meantime, had we had the OECS competition taking place, Michael would have already played a couple of games for Grenada against St. Lucia, and he would have played against St. Kitts and Nevis and Antigua and St. Martin, and so he would have had at least 5-8 games under his belt before he even go to the World Cup qualifiers. Now, there are no games. There's no OECS basketball, there's no OECS netball, there's nothing sports-wise. But in the meantime, Michael, outside of last year, the Sir Garfield Sobers schools competition is continuing. And you have huge sums of schools coming from South Africa, United Kingdom, USA, from Bermuda. You have schools coming to Barbados to participate in the Sir Garfield Sobers competition, along with the surrounding colleges from Trinidad and Jamaica. And I think Antigua sent a team. St. Kitts and Nevis Cricket Academy also sent a team at some point in time. So that is being active. Why? Because Barbados understand, Michael, what it means to have those things. We in the other territories, we paying just lip service when it comes in terms of us trying to be able to make sure, and as somebody said, the facilities that we have erected make sure that it gets us votes. But we need more than votes now. We need some return on the investment.
Yeah, but no, it's interesting because Colin mentioned the fact of a squash facility, and I also said, well, there's one in Grenada, but I'm not even certain that many people know that when the track and field stadium was built, that they actually constructed as part of that a squash court, indoor facility. I don't even know to this day what it is being used for, but I do know that at some point in time there was this squash. No squash is played in Grenada. So yes, your point about facilities, we can give them high marks for the investment in facilities. But when it
let me help you here, Michael. Do you know that there's an indoor facility in Montserrat? You knew about that?
Indoor, like an indoor gymnasium kind of?
We have Montserrat has an indoor basketball facility that can play netball and basketball. Now that's almost like news to you, right?
Yes, certainly.
So here, this is what I'm talking about. Now we have a situation here, Michael, in Antigua and Barbuda, where the athletic club, which is close to the Stanford ground, the swimming area, the gymnasium, the swimming pool, everything, they're going to be closed. They're closed because of the pandemic. Now, you know what is actually happening, Michael? There are 3 swim clubs in Antigua and Barbuda who form part of that athletic club. They are going to be affected. Swimming is a big thing in Antigua and Barbuda. As you know, they've had OECS swimming championship. So even though we're surrounded, Michael, by water, we have not really paid attention to those coaches who have done an excellent job by having our young athletes in the pool doing real excellent. And so that's another scenario. In fact, you know what's amazing, Michael, because you were talking about squash and you were talking about some other sports and non-traditional sports and Olympic sports. There's still a myth that, we only going to play cricket, football, basketball. We're not pushing ourselves into the other non-traditional sports. But maybe, Michael, the non-traditional sports is maybe what might get us on the medal podium. Because the huge sums of money, Michael, that is being spent to tell us that one of our OECS teams is going to qualify for the FIFA World Cup. By the time that comes around, Michael, right, we're going to be bankrupt. So maybe all that money that we're beginning to invest in by saying St. Vincent and Antigua and St. Kitts and Nevis, we want to get to the World Cup, we really need to come up with some realistic goals to understand that the men's FIFA World Cup, for any small nation, it is going to be huge. We're speaking to the president of the Jamaica Football Federation, Michael Ricketts. He said they have 9 disciplines who are competing on the world stage. And this is on the campaign for the different perspectives for ladies and for men's, under 17, under 20, you name it, qualifiers. 6 million US and counting, Michael, in terms of preparation. Now, Michael, we're Grenada going to get 6 million Antigua or St. Kitts and Nevis. We're going to get 6 million US for it. This is only just one sport, We ain't talking about other sports. We're just talking about one sport, football. You understand where I'm coming from? So I'm saying, Michael, we have to now chart our energies in the other areas, the other non-traditional sports. The other final issue, Michael, the point that I want to make. Have we really utilized the coaches and the human resources out of Cuba? Have we done that? Let's look at Trinidad and Tobago, Michael, who have executed and have done that smartly. Olympic champion, Tia Walcott, Cuban coach. That's just one example. I just give you one example. I know, Michael, that a couple other countries have Cuban coaches, XYZ. But what I'm saying, Michael, have we as an OECS come together and sat down with our counterparts in Cuba and say, hey, you see what's happening in Grenada? They got a couple Cuban coaches and they're working on field events. So let's get some coaches to look around and figure out that, boy, we got some good high jumpers in Antigua and Barbuda, some good sprinters in St. Kitts and Nevis. We have some good field athletes in Grenada. Let's look around. What Montserrat have? Montserrat maybe might look like they might be able to have some good throws, so we can balance and get some of the coaches around so that we could be able to get onto the podium. Maybe we might even decide that we could get some swim coaches from Cuba to maybe go involved and get involved in gymnastics. I think we need to start thinking outside of the box, Michael, if we want to be able to get on the Olympic medal podium.
Yeah, well, the thinking outside of the box is something that we have been clamoring for quite a while in terms of our sports administrators in particular. And I know it's something you also want to touch on regarding our sports administrators in the region. It hasn't been good news for those in Grenada regarding boxing, as you have heard in my program last week, that boxing is in disarray in Grenada, all because of the whole issue regarding the executive and the association, etc., etc. So much to talk about regarding that. But regional sports administration in particular, and their thinking, their thought process, and especially in the context of the pandemic and post-pandemic, whether or not, some of these associations maybe will be able to survive, because as you indicated that whereas some of them used to depend on government subsidies and assistance from government, no doubt when it comes to the budget, one of the first things that government will be cutting most likely will be sports. Health and education and all these will be getting a sizable amount. There is no if and but about it. So here comes the important part of our regional sports administrators or sports administrators, and how can they think outside of the box? Because their international affiliates, for example, may be saying the same thing, that we also have been affected, and the sort of assistance you have been receiving may not be available. So in order for these associations to survive, they need to be thinking outside of the box. Vernon, how do you suggest they go forward?
First of all, I want to start with administrators, because Michael, Colin, myself, Ricky Skerritt, Dr. Shallow, all administrators. The administrators get no praise. The sportsmen, they bash the administrators, you name it. The cricketers, the basketballers. But something has to be happening for sports to be still viable in the Caribbean. And so whether we think that the administrators are doing a good job or they're not doing a good job, something is still happening, because at least folks can still go to the Olympics, folks can still play cricket, folks can still play basketball, they can still play badminton. They have some activities happening. What I feel is happening is that our administrators are still living 40, 50 years behind the time. Sports is $1 billion industry. And I said to you, Michael, in 2012, when Kim Collins from St. Kitts and Nevis was barred, let me make the point, was barred from participating in the Olympics. I make no bones about that. 2012, 2016, when he was barred from participating in the Olympics. Our administrators of the day still don't even understand and can't tell anybody why Kim Collins did not run in the Olympics. Nobody could tell you that up until now, Michael. And you know that this is something that has been dear to my heart, and I will, whenever God is ready for me, I will forever defend that situation. You know what's happening, Michael? Our administrators can't deal with elite athletes. They cannot, and they have not prepared themselves to say, boy, let's go and try and see if we could be able to find somebody to deal with an elite athlete. So when we have an elite athlete like Karani James, who has an agent, who has a manager, who has a physio, who has a doctor, who has an itinerary for 2021 mapped out already, the Grenada Athletic Association can't just get up and pick up the phone and call Karani and say, hey, you have to come home to come run for us. No, it doesn't work like that. There's a communication line. So you know what's happening? Karani James is going to say to you, Colin James is my manager. This is his number. And you find him very rude. Yeah, that's how the administrators think. Who Colin? I'm not talking to the Colin James, I'm talking to you. No, boss man. My job is to go and train. My coach and my physio is at the Karani James Stadium waiting on me. I have to go and train. No disrespect to you. Call Colin James. This is his number. And people have a problem with it. So, because sports is a billion-dollar industry, the administrators have not been able to come up to speed to understand how are we going to deal with elite athletes. We've heard about situations in Antigua with Daniel Baker-Bailey and the association and the National Olympic Committee and all these guys and everybody. And if you listen to some of those guys, because I've been around, Michael, been around some of the guys from the National Olympic Committee. And Michael, that is their honeymoon. That is their retirement fund. They don't care about no athletes. You can imagine, Michael, that folks, the chef de mission know which Olympics they're going to, which Commonwealth Games they're going to, which World Championships they're going to, but they have no athletes, and that is okay. That's how sports administrators think. They know which games they're going to before the athletes. In fact, they don't even want to carry a media person. They take somebody from the executive and make them a media person. Michael, I went to the Pan Am Games, you know that, in Brazil, with a view, lining up to be able to make sure that I was going to go to the Beijing Olympics, because you know that was the platform. And I came back home, Michael, from Brazil, and kept asking, what are going to be the arrangements to go to Beijing? What is it going to cost? Tell me, I'll go and raise my own funds to be able to get to go there. Until this day, Michael, I was never told. But instead, an executive member from the National Olympic Committee was the media representative.
Yeah, it's something I always, I've noticed that whether it was Olympic Games, Pan Am Games, even World Championships, but particularly those under the auspices of the NOCs, National Olympic Committees, where you have members of the executive, performing the role. There was once I was in the mix zone and I saw someone from another island who's an executive member actually in the mix zone. Ethically, that's not correct. And it's something I raised at the International Sports Press Association. They had a meeting, and it's something I raised because if you cannot find someone in the media, or at least accredit someone in the media to go to these international meets, there's no reason why you should take someone from your executive and just accredit them just for the sake of accreditation. And and ask me what the person, they're not asking anything, they're not reporting anything, not even a photo, and then the whole problem about even the athletes or the sports people who they should be representing don't even know who the person is, or they don't even see them, and things like that, but that's a lot that can be discussed in the future. But
and
the point,
and that's why I wanted to salute Colin James for his contribution in even trying to see if he could be able to keep sports alive by writing. Because it's things like these that turn off young journalists. Now, why am I fighting myself if I can't go to an Olympic Games? I can go to the Carifta Games, any little small meet, and so that's not a problem. They're not interested in that. In fact, I've been to almost 10 Cariftas, Michael, right? But you will never see those officials who claiming at the Olympics to be media workmen go to a Carifta Games. So they have never seen Karani James or Usain Bolt at a Carifta Games, but they go to the Olympics where they can be able to cock, and they stay in the hotel and they get the finest treatment, And that's why I said to you, I make no bones about it. It's a retirement fund for all of the officials. That's what they use it for. Because they have no respect for the media. Worse so, if you just write something about them, you're branded. As far as they're concerned, that's it. They just disband you because they've got the power. So what do you think we having all these problems in our communities? We having all these problems in our communities is because no young sports leaders are allowed to blossom and come through. So when you look at the National Olympic Committee's executives, you see the same people for the last 40, 50 years, and nothing has changed in the movement. Nothing.
But on the flip side, while that may be so, who do you blame? Because do folks want to get involved? I mean, some people might say they are not given the opportunity to be involved. But I know of situations where people are not interesting. They do not show any interest. So what happens? I mean,
because there's no policy, Michael, and there must be policy. Hear me, Michael. I think sometimes the Ministry of Sports and the National Olympic Committee maybe have to hold some blame for some things which happen in some of these Caribbean countries. How you can have associations who have not had elections for 10 years, 10, 11 years? How is that possible, Michael? That in Guyana, let's talk cricket, because you stir me up, so let's talk. How we could not have elections in Guyana for cricket? How we could not have elections for boxing in Antigua? How we could have problems with boxing in Grenada? You have a number of associations around who are law unto themselves, don't have no elections, and nobody look like they want to go and say, hey, partner, you need to have elections, because if you don't have elections, we'll call you out. So the sport is suffering because Olympic committees and Ministry of Sports can't intervene. So they sit back and say, well, boy, IOC tell us there's no government interference. Well, Michael, I don't know no association that owns that owns a sporting facility. And if they do, they still need government support. So at some point in time, somebody need to nudge you to tell you, hey, you have not held elections for 10 years. So you really can't be coming in here and demanding duty-free for equipment, but you don't have no governance structure. Those things is what I feel need to start happening. On the other hand, Michael, we need to come up with a new cadre of new sports leaders. But we can't come up with a new cadre of new sports leaders, Michael, because people are calling elections and don't even tell you that they're calling elections. Don't even have members. There are people around, Michael, who just call elections, cricket elections. Just call up an election, have the executive come to the meeting, don't have a meeting no time during their tenure, if they're in for 2 years. If they had a general meeting 2 or 3 times, Michael, they had a lot. So people have turned off. The clubs, they use the clubs as a guinea pig, Michael, to get elected. And once they get elected, they don't go back to develop the clubs. And that is happening right now, Michael, in the football, in the OECS region. FIFA has introduced a FIFA club licensing agreement. Half of the clubs, Michael, more than half of the clubs in the OECS don't understand a thing what's going on because they're not structured, because the associations didn't take time out to develop them and tell them, hey, this is what coming, this is what you have to deal with. They only have them there when elections come to come and say. So if we got 50 clubs in St. Kitts, hey, remember elections coming up in 2023, right? So we can come, we can bring some balls for you, we can bring some bibs, and you're going to come and vote for me. That's the only time they remember the clubs. And I'm just talking just football.
Too many, are you suggesting too many misfits, as we'll say, in sports administration in the region?
Well, you only have to just look, Michael, on the executives of most of the associations. How many ladies you see popping up? You know there's supposed to be a gender balance, equality across most of the sporting associations. Michael, call them out. I think when we get some time, let's call out most of the associations, the main associations, and you're going to see what's happening. Are they really saying what they're supposed to do? Are they making an effort to get women involved in sports? Or that is just another pastime And so when the governing body come down and say, how many women you have on your executive? You say, well, we got Miss Bascom. How long she's been on? Oh, she came on the last time. So you plan to get any more? Or the women not interested? Those are the stories that you're hearing. But they don't really want no women. They want the women to just go to do the work while they go on the trips. That's what our sports administrators are dealing with right now. They don't really want no serious woman to come in and no sport executive to be able to drive them and give them the ideas. No, they don't really want that, Michael. They're talking, but there's no action to it.
So,
but I want to come back, Michael. Before you go, we're on sports administration. While we're on sports administration, Michael, I think there were two institutions, Michael, in the Caribbean which came under attack in the last 6 weeks. 6 weeks. The University of the West Indies and Cricket West Indies. Let me repeat, Michael. I will extend it to 2 months. We're in April, March, April. There were two institutions that have made all of us proud around the world. The University of the West Indies and Cricket West Indies, as it is known today. Originally, it was West Indies Cricket, and the names changed. Everybody moved. I hope that we could be able to get the tree out of the logo, but we'll talk that on another day, right? But those two institutions, Michael, were attacked from all angles for the last 2 months. You hear people questioning the ability of Sir Hilary Beckles and whether he should continue. We had a situation, Michael, where for the first time in West Indies history, we're going to be celebrating 100 years coming up, Michael. I think it's in 2027. Yeah, 2027, 1927, I think 1928. I think that's when we first graced our presence. So we're going to be celebrating 100 years, Michael, West Indies cricket. And for the first time ever, Michael, a sitting president, Ricky Skerritt, the 19th of Cricket West Indies. We had 18 before him. We couldn't have a quorum to have an annual general meeting. I saw that, Michael. I almost lost my job, Michael, because the whole walls came crashing down. Suppose all those persons, Michael, who signed contract with Cricket West Indies over the last couple of months decided that this got to be a joke institution, man. You know what I mean? The damage. You know the damage that has been placed on West Indies cricket and the University of the West Indies over the last 2 months, Michael. You understand the attack and where it came from? These two institutions that have made us proud. And let me say this, Michael. There are no guaranteed and no perfect institutions in the world. So as much as we want to bash the University of the West Indies, the people who are trying to bash the University of the West Indies, ask them what they're doing to be able to help the system. The people who are trying to bash West Indies cricket, the same cricket which made them millionaires and give them benefits, ask them what they're giving back to the game in their respective territories. Ask them how they're helping someone in Grenada or someone in Brownhill in Nevis or somebody in Guyana to be able to realize a dream for them that they too can get something out of cricket. Ask them, Michael, how they're promoting women's cricket. Ask them how they're promoting sports. Ask them, Michael, when is the last time that they helped somebody in the community? But they want to come and bash the institutions and still be part of the institutions, you know, Michael. Now, Michael, you know sometimes, right? We talk about people being socialists, all sorts of names, right? But sometimes and being a communist and so. But I think in some sports, Michael, we need some communist leaders. You see, when people decide, Michael, that you're not turning up to a meeting, then sanctions has to be taken out. So you ain't turn up to a meeting, we find who the members are. Who ain't turn up? Michael Bascom and Vernon Springer, where we gonna ban you. You can no longer serve. Because you really can't have West Indies cricket at heart. And that is how I feel, Michael, about this whole situation. How will you expect, Michael? Michael, let's be frank. These leaders want to run sports in the Caribbean, but they don't want to turn up for a meeting. So how is the sport going to run when you can't even respect the sport? You have to respect the sport and you have to respect the institutions. I had to get that off of my chest, Michael.
Well, it seems as if you have quite a lot on your chest, you know. But the question still remains about the misfits, okay, in regional sports administrators. And I think it was Kathy who was saying that, they can, you mean they won't intervene. But the point being made, Vernon, seriously though, that why it is that some people are not attracted to sports administration. Is it because of what's happening now, what is happening before their eyes, that they're not interested? Or is it a matter of that they're just not being, welcome into the fold? I mean, what are the real issues that affecting the attraction of young people into sports administration?
The sports administrators, the modern day sports administrators, are not willing to learn the business of sports. You have to learn the business of sports. We're going to be in a situation, Michael, where I'm scared about our small associations in the territories. And if we don't get the OECS Sports Desk up and running, a number of small sports in the OECS are going to die. And as such, our communities are going to be more affected based on what is happening. Let me repeat again, Michael. I am fearful for some of these sports administrators. Why? Because we have used the government treasury as an ATM. So we in St. Kitts and Nevis, and we want to send away a basketball team. We know about this 2 years ago, and we wait until the team going 2 weeks to come out and get parents to get riled up and call in on all the sports shows them and say that the government ain't give us no support, and so we can't go to the tournament, and the young people then gonna be affected, and and the government buckle to the pressure, find the money that they didn't have to send the team. And this is what our sports administrators do around the Caribbean all the time. They don't understand, and they come with this nonsense, Michael, giving you the impression as if like you don't know about sports. Michael, there's almost a calendar which is being planned out where you know, Michael, that in 2023, the ICC is going to have a under-19 Girls World Cup. So everybody in the Caribbean knows that there's going to be an under-19 ICC under-20. In 2023, there's going to be a Girls Under-19 World Cup. You know, Michael, that Carifta Games is supposed to take place in Bermuda this year. It could be postponed because of the pandemic. But you know, in the next couple of years, once they map out everything, Michael, where the Carifta Games going. You know, Michael, where the FIFA Youth World Cup Under-20 is going to be held. All these things are planned. But these smart administrators wait until the last minute to come around and put pressure or try to put pressure on the communities or on the young people, parents, to be able to come up with money so they could go for a joyride. Because most of the time it's a joyride they're going for. I am saying, Michael, no serious person who understands about life is going to come around and be part of these associations who are not serious about sports. They're only talking about it. So there are people who want to help, Michael, but there are also people who are in high authorities who are afraid to act. Notice what I said, Michael. Who are afraid to act. And until when we get the technocrats to advise our sports ministers that, hey, Vernon Springer is the president of squash in Antigua and Barbuda, but he has not held elections for the last 10 years. And for the minister to write you a powerful letter and let you know that, hey, you need to hold elections by 2021. And if you don't, sanctions will be placed against you. That's what we have to start to do. Otherwise, Michael, we're going to have the same, we're going to be having this debate for the next 5 years, because the same sports leaders that we have around now, they're going to continue to run sports because the young people ain't gonna have the faith and the patience and the energy to come in to deal with the hypocrisy and the nonsense that these sports leaders are going through today.
What do you say then about the lack of proper sports policies for these regional countries? Because of the lack of a sports policy, we have this this reoccurring in most of the islands of the Caribbean.
Well, let's put this on the radar. You know, we spoke about this already, Michael. That is why I'm saying the OECS as one unit, we need to have an OECS sports policy. Not Antigua have a sports policy and St. Kitts got a sports policy and Grenada got their own sports policy. There's some movement where we have sportsmen and artists and can move to the Caribbean and can apply their trade and XYZ there. I am saying put the technocrats together at one table. Just like how we have an OECS union, I think we can have an OECS sports policy that I feel that can be able to be of greater benefits to us as a body rather than us individually trying to see if we could fight on our own to be able to come up with it together. And then we can have a model which other countries can be able to look forward and say, hey, boy, what those guys doing in the OECS is not a bad thing, you know, because they have free movement moving between the OECS and they got one policy which governs for all. Now, just like anything else, Michael, there are some countries which are bigger than some, but almost all the countries in the OECS almost participate in sports, in almost every aspect of sports. So it's not that anybody going to be left out. So I'm saying, Michael, I want to salute Joseph Reds-Pereira and his entire staff who would have initiated the initial OECS Sports Desk. And to say to the technocrats today that we have to find an avenue, people like Victor Vida Bruno and all those ladies and so, we have to find an avenue. Where do we go to have that discussion? I think Vida tell me that we maybe need to speak to the Caribbean National Olympic Committees. Boy, to tell you the truth, boy, Michael, I have some respect for some of the leaders who are on that. Brian Lewis is the president, I have some respect. But in terms of some of the other folks who serve in the aspect, I think we could find some other people in the diaspora and maybe even in the Caribbean who I think understand about sports and will bring a business aspect. Because the new OECS Sports Desk is going to need a business aspect. Because we can't go to the ATM. The ATM is the government. We're going to have to come up, we have to devise a plan that will be able to make sure that the body can sustain itself. Especially during a time of pandemic, especially during what's happening in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, especially during hurricane season, especially during climate change. We have to be able, I think, Michael, and we've been around as journalists, there are enough funding agencies, Michael, outside of the Caribbean, from Australia down, from the United Kingdom down to Japan, who are willing to come on board, providing that we organize ourselves, Michael, and fund sports in the OECS. I deal with them, we talk to them all the time as journalists. But the problem is that there's no leadership in that area. So maybe, Michael, we might have to take off our journalist hat and put on our sports administrator's hat and start the process. Because if we continue to talk about it, Michael, in 5 years' time, I'm going to be 60-something and maybe knocked up in somewhere in a home and feeling hurt that I really didn't do anything. So while I have a little energy, let's try and see if we could take off our journalist hat for the meantime, garner some people around in the Caribbean who have a deep love for sports, especially in the OECS, and let's try and see if we could be able to put together a paper and take it to the OECS sports leaders and say, hey, this is what worked 25 years ago. This is what the OECS Sports Desk did for us 25 years ago. This is what this can do for us now in the next 25 years going forward.
Are you concerned that if there isn't a plan of action and an urgent plan of action, that sports in the OECS will be null and void?
That's where we're heading. You already see the challenges of even netball surviving in the OECS, simply because The young ladies don't have anywhere where they can be able to go to establish and showcase their skills. Why are we not having, Michael, more sporting activities between the Ministry of Sports Department across the OECS? Dominica just completed the under-16 netball championship, which used to be one. We used to have a under-16 netball championship where the Ministry of Sports used to have Antigua, Anguilla, Montserrat. Why we can't have that, Michael? What is stopping us? What is stopping us from having a Dominica team go to Grenada? I know somebody gonna tell me something about costs and all kind of stuff and so. Michael, there was a time when we used to run sports and there was no money. And it used to happen. Why? Because the Pat Whites and the Lloyd Lazars and the Marvin Richards and the folks in the sports directors in Dominica and Grenada and so, those guys were adamant that when they were speaking to their Minister of Sports, they said, Mr. Minister, we have 4 teams that touring next year. A team from Grenada going to the Dominica Games, one going to the St. Kitts Nevis 13 and under cricket competition, one going to the Caribbean under-16 netball championship, and we need some money for the junior athletes who are going to Carifta. And so that has to be in the budget. That's what those OECS, that's what those former directors used to, that's what they used to put in place. Now, the directors, they're not interested. The technocrats, not interested. They're not pushing anything. And like I said to you, if it is not their sport, then it is nothing. So we need to find some people to say, hey, every year, the OECS is going to send a combined team to England, cricket. Every year, we're going to organize at the end of our competition, and we're going to send a netball team to the Cayman Islands. Every year, when we finish our OECS sports competition, we're going to pick a team, and we're going to go to the Sogafe Sobers competition, or we're going to send 2 teams. Those are things that can happen. There are people out there, Michael, who want to sponsor junior sports. Don't tell them anything about nobody who 21 and 22 and no hardcore men and women. Tell them about junior sports. You tell them about junior sports, Michael, they're going to come on board and they're going to sponsor. So I'm saying, Michael, even if it meant that we had to go to Leah with a plan and say, hey, we're trying to revive OECS school sports and we want a 50% rebate on tickets. And then when we get to Antigua or Grenada or whatever, the government there is going to take care of accommodation. But we have a memorandum of understanding which is being established. I'm saying to you, Michael, parents will and families will make a sacrifice to get involved to make sure that their child is on that plane going to represent their school or their country.
Vernon, but you know, that's a lot of talk, but the real thing is the action, you know. And there's also the issue I know you mentioned about government a couple of times, but there is also and government's intervention to some extent. But there's also the argument about government's limitation in terms of intervening in, you know, sporting disciplines as it relates to international federations, etc., etc. You know the whole works regarding that. So, you know, sometimes there's some level of limitation as to how much government can do regarding that.
But hold on, Michael. The governments have a responsibility to plan a pathway.
Yeah, yes, they do. They do. We establish that.
So the pathway is through the Ministry of Sports and the Ministry of Education. That's the pathway. We can't fix the other problem yet, Michael. The other problem that you're talking about is an ego problem, where we have some administrators, the ego bigger than them. And rather than they understand that nobody voted for them, somebody vote for Kim Collins, somebody want to see Kim Collins. Nobody want to see Michael Bascom, who's the president of the Grenada Athletic Association, because Michael Bascom can't run. People just want to see Karani James represent Grenada at the Olympics. Karani James going to the Olympics this year? That's what people want to know. Nobody care if Michael Bascom go to the Olympics. Because if Karani James not going to the Olympics, the people in Grenada are not really interested in the Olympics. The quicker the administrators understand that, Michael, I think the better it would be for them.
Fair enough. Fair enough, Vernon. And you're saying all of that to say the importance of our OECS Sports Desk, okay, and how
we need to lead.
How imperative it is for the islands within the OECS to ensure that the OECS Sports Desk is operating. But Vernon, the problem we do have is that of, and I mean, that is what you have been outlining, and it probably means that we may have to look outside, because the same sports administrators that probably you're bashing are the same sports administrators that might be probably involved with that same OECS Sports Desk.
No, we have to change that. We got to change the landscape. Are you ready
Really?
Michael, I can find 12 sports leaders in the OECS right now, you know. I can find 12 new sports leaders in the OECS right now.
So right. You use the word new. You use the word. Yeah.
Who willing to work? Who willing to work? I mean, I'm not asking you, Michael. I deal with them. I deal with them on a daily basis. They're hurting like me and you, Michael. I am ready, Michael, to put up my hand and ready to work for the OECS, because I am saying, Michael, I have been a product of the OECS through Joseph Reds Pereira. Let me repeat that again. I am a product of the OECS Sports Desk through Joseph Reds Pereira. I went to the British Virgin Islands, Michael, as a cricket coach and lived there for 8 months. Who organized that? Joseph Reds Pereira. As a cricket coach, when I just come back from England. I then left from there, from the British Virgin Islands, and went back to England, got myself certified, come back, and Joseph Reds Pereira lined me up again, and I went to Anguilla to work. I lived in Anguilla for about a year and something, working as a cricket coach. Now I'm saying to you, Michael, I have benefited, I am a servant, I have benefited through the OECS Sports Desk. So I know, Michael, what it means, what sports means to me. I don't know the last time, Michael, that I bought a ticket. Let me repeat. I do not know the last time personally that I have bought a ticket, because I have either gone on duty through Cricket West Indies, or I have gone on duty as a sports journalist or a sports administrator. So I don't know. I, Vernon A. Springer, don't know the last time that I have bought a ticket. So that's why it irks me when I sit down with some administrators and they watch me and tell me, I can't hire Michael Bascom. And I saying, well, you can't hire Michael Bascom. Is it that you're jealous of him because he's upgraded himself, certified himself, he's one of the top coaches here? Well, how we going to hire Michael Bascom and we have some coaches here who we've been toiling with for all the time? Well, I'm saying, but the coaches ain't good. So what you want to continue to do? You still want to continue with the same coaches who ain't good? Or you want to hire somebody who can bring some value to your program? So the system, the boys club continue.
When you say the coaches ain't good, is that a local term you use?
We talk about local to the region. Ain't just think it's to the region. It's to the region. The coaches who we have in the Caribbean, whether we like it or not, in some of the disciplines, Michael, they can't take the athletes to the next level. And they're trying to hold on to the athletes. So you bring Colin James to this level, which is to the Carifta level. But you can't get Colin James to win an Olympic medal. So Colin James has to go to Jamaica where Dr. Glenn Mills is going to be able to take him to the next level. So why don't you just give up Colin James and allow him to go? No, you still want to hold on to Colin James. And that is the problem, Michael, that our coaches have in the Caribbean. They stagnated the sports. They're holding on to the athletes like the athletes belong to them. And they're telling people about, is my athlete? How becomes your athlete? You brought the athlete to one level, but you haven't developed yourself mentally to be able to understand that you don't have the know-how to take the athlete to the next level. That is what is holding us back, man. That is what is holding us back. Michael, we have another situation here, Michael, where in the Caribbean, our cricketers want to hold the board, the Cricket West Indies, at ransom over a fitness test policy. When the rest of the world Michael, is up in the ante for fitness test. We in the Caribbean bringing a union to say, hey, we don't like the regiment, so what you put out there for this fitness test, you know, and we don't. What are you really telling me? In this International Day of Sport, Michael, that we're fighting against something which is going to make you better? That's what we come to now. That we come so unionized that we want to bring our union to meet with Cricket West Indies, and we're questioning about the fitness test and why and who pass and who ain't pass. How we get so, Michael? And plus we ain't even performing. We're not even winning. We wasn't even winning before. We were not performing. But here were some athletes, some cricketers who want to hold a board ransom and questioning about the fitness test policy and who should do it and who should not do it in an international world. Now, Michael, you know, right? You realize that the pool is dwindling going to the IPL, right? You know, if some of these Caribbean cricketers don't get the act together. You know, O'Shane Thomas, Michael, in 2020, almost lost his IPL contract just from the CPL alone. You realize he didn't play one game, Michael? You know why? Fitness. This is serious time. The Indians are serious. The Indians have upped the fitness test for the senior team. The Pakistanis, they've gone to a different level. Everybody, Michael, is improving, but West Indies want to stay the same place. So you know what happening? Skeleton and Shallow gonna come under some heat. Oh, the forcing this fitness test issue here. But it is best for West Indies cricket. Because what we've been doing before for West Indies cricket, Michael, is building from on top down. So we missed the trick. We have to build from the base up. What is happening to our grassroots program? We have to concentrate on that. We don't have enough time today, Michael, so I'll have to come back and we're going to be able to deal with that. But let me tell you something, Michael. We can't fix West Indies cricket from top down. We have to fix it from base up.
Well, quite a lot you're saying there, Vernon, and I realize 1 hour is really not enough for Vernon to be on our program because with just 2 minutes remaining, I you know, there's so much more that we wanted to speak about. But on a final note, Vernon, and I know you want to drive home the point regarding our sports administrators, our OECS Sports Desk, and how do we go forward with the post-pandemic period? And if you can probably say that in a minute and a half, I'll appreciate.
Michael, you have to lead the way, and I'm going to help you along with Colin and the journalists in the Caribbean. We have to organize a webinar with the directors of sports and the Ministry of Sports and top officials in the OECS. We have to organize a webinar. We might not get everybody to talk, but we need to be able to make sure that we bring in some expertise and put the cards on the table so that people understand the importance of sports and where we're going. We might maybe even need to get the governor of Central Bank to be part of that discussion going forward in terms of how best can sports help us to survive and come out of this pandemic. It's only sports, Michael, could be able to bring us through this pandemic. We have to lead on this.
Mm-hmm. I will take you up on that. I know something you spoke about before regarding having some discussion on the way forward, and I think it's very important, and it's something probably I will look forward to collaborating with, as you say. I
see you have live in St. Kitts and Nevis. Don't get it mixed up. Antigua and Barbuda. Don't. That's home now.
Oh, so you actually so you home now. Oh, well, home. You call it Antigua home, right?
That's what I said to you.
Okay, right. Well, good to know. But
home.
Okay then. But it's nice speaking to you, Vernon. It's always a pleasure having you. And someone said, tend to be very passionate indeed, on the issues. And I'm looking to speak to you sometime in the future. Once we have life.
But what I think we need to happen, Michael, and maybe we need to give ourselves a 6 weeks window. We need to give ourselves a 6 weeks window and organize a webinar. It's the way to go. Just like how you're here talking to me, we really need to take the lead on it. And I think that I will help you. I'm sure Colin would want to get on board between me and behind the scenes and put it together. I think we like I tell you, we got people out there who want to help. Let's get them on board and let's make this happen.
Okay then. Well, as I said, I'm serious about it, and I'll take you up on that offer. Thank you very much, Vernon.
God bless you, man.
Okay.
And it was indeed a pleasure speaking to everybody who's on your platform. And let me once again salute Colin James, who continues to try, because it's not an easy feat to be able to day in, day out, to be able to come up and to be able to highlight all these things. But hey, we got to change the culture, and maybe we need to stop talking and just act.
Okay then. Thank you very much. Okay then. Folks, there you have it. That's Vernon Springer. He is the CEO and owner of VASports Media. Even though he's from St. Kitts, he is speaking to us from Antigua, which is now his home base, as he says. Thank you very much, Vernon. Always very passionate about sports. And before that, you had Colin James, who is the editor of SportsWorld Antigua. And no doubt, I want to thank both gentlemen, sports journalists themselves. And yeah. And I want to thank Kathy Harper Hall for keeping us company during this program. Very much your insights, very informative indeed. And I know you're passionate about sports, not just netball, not just boxing, and not just track and field, but sports in general. And thank you for all your years of service. And not just to sports to Barbados and Jamaica, but sports throughout the Caribbean. Folks, I want to thank you once again for being part of our program this weekend. And no doubt looking forward to your company again on Thursday, when we do have another in our program called Saturday Sports Special. On behalf of all those who have made this possible and all our guests for this week, I want to thank you, and do look forward to your company on Thursday. Do have a pleasant weekend.